Hello, everybody. It has been 20 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall. This event brought big hopes, big changes, not only in Germany, but all around the world. And many people in Eastern Europe, but also far away from Berlin, in African countries, for instance, discovered at that time a new freedom. The freedom to express, the freedom to talk, the freedom to think, the freedom to believe. And 20 years after that, what is the situation now? Is there more freedom today in the world? The answer is yes. But is there less threats on freedom of expression in the world? I would say the answer is no. Threats are different now. The world is not the same than it was 20 years ago. There have been, these recent years, a kind of privatization of the threats and privatization of enemies of freedom of expression. 20 years ago, enemies of freedom were dictators, were repressive governments, were authoritarian regimes. The situation is not the same today. Now, enemies of press freedom are militias, are mafias, are drug traffickers, are religious groups. All these people are enemies to press freedom. So the question now is, and linked to this event organized by Google, is new media, is internet helping promote freedom of expression? I would say yes, of course. If we just have a look at two recent events. The first one was in Burma in September 2007. You all remember this big demonstration of the monks in the streets of Rangoon. There has been a serious crackdown on these monks and on this peaceful demonstration, but we received images from this demonstration because of internet with the help of Burmese people who took some pictures with their mobile phones and sent these images all over the world. The same crackdown happened 20 years back in Burma, but nobody knew what happened because internet didn't exist at that time. More recently, you all follow the crisis in Iran this year, just after the presidential election in Iran. It was the same situation. Professional journalists were forbidden to go on the streets and to report about the situation in Iran. But at the same time, we received many and many pictures and video footages from Iranian citizens, from Iranian internet users. So it means that yes, internet and new media is helping promote freedom of expression. And this is our experience at Reporters Without Borders. We fight against censorship, we fight against laws that undermine press freedom. We also give financial support and financial aid every year to more than 100 journalists all over the world. And finally, we also work to improve the safety of journalists who work in war zones. We are an international organization. It means we have offices and branches all over the world. Our most important branch is here in Germany. And we have a local network of local correspondents in more than 120 countries. These people, these persons, our local correspondents, are the ones who take the more risk to inform us about press freedom situation. Imagine the difficulty to be a correspondent for Reporters Without Borders in a country like Burma, in a country like Syria, for instance. I think we have been the first organization to launch an Internet and Freedom Desk. It was just a few months after the 9/11 attack in New York in 2001. The objective of this desk, Internet and Freedom Desk, is to gather information about online press freedom violations. It means that we have people, we have staff in Paris, in our headquarters in Paris, dedicated to support bloggers, to defend internet websites which are under control, which have been censored. You just have to keep in mind, for instance, that for the first time last year, in 2008, there were more websites and blogs censored in the world than traditional medias, means TV station, radio station, or newspapers. we can also launch major campaigns with the help of bloggers in free countries, because there is a strong solidarity among bloggers all over the world. So there are many, maybe thousands of bloggers in Europe, in United States, or in free countries, who try to do their best to help bloggers who are in prison in countries like China or Cuba, for instance. We have a lobbying activity as well towards local authorities to try to make sure they can improve the situation, they can improve their record in human rights field. We also have lobbying activity towards private companies, and I have to say a few words about this. Maybe some of you heard about the Shitao case in China. Shitao was a blogger, is a blogger in China, and he has been sentenced to a few years in prison only because Yahoo gave his personal contacts to Chinese police, to Chinese authorities. So it means that we also, as an NGO dedicated to defend human rights, we also have to denounce the behavior of private companies which work in very repressive countries. And I have to say a word about Google, because this event has been organized by Google. First, we were a little bit disappointed when Google decided to censor its search engine in China, google.cn. And we sent a letter to Eric Schmidt, CEO of Google, and to many executives at Google. But then we have a very interesting debate with Google and to try to solve this problem. I mean, Google has had two choices. Stay in China and try to continue its activity and agree to accept to censor its search engine, or leave China. It was, I mean, there is no other choice. And, but if Google leaves China, the place will be taken by private Chinese companies. And I'm sure Chinese citizens won't benefit from the departure of Google. So we think now what is very important is that, and I want to say it now, that Google should continue to push its limits, to push the limits of censor in the countries where Google have its activities. Because if Google don't do it, it will lose its credibility, it will lose its legitimacy. And internet is going very fast, very quickly, so the image of a company can change very easily. I just remember the Yahoo case, and in a few weeks, in a few months, the message spread among many people all over the world not to have a Yahoo account anymore. And for instance, I personally decided to stop to use a Yahoo account because of this case in China. It was just to say it. Reporters Without Borders, we have a concrete support for bloggers. We launched a few years ago a practical guide for bloggers. It means that we provide concrete tools to help bloggers who want to blog in repressive countries, because one of their problems when you are a blogger in China or in Vietnam is that you have to avoid censorship to make your blog updates. I'm going to switch to this map. Yeah, we have established a list of internet enemies. In these countries, there are new borders. This event is called Breaking Borders. There are still borders in this world, and these are electronic borders, virtual borders. And in these countries, there are very strong borders. These are the 12 enemies of internet in the world. It means that in these countries, internet is subject to more and more control. There are at least 90 people in jail right now, as I'm talking, 90 people in jail only because they try to use internet to express freely, to express themselves. In countries like, just to give you a few examples, in a country like Burma, there is one blogger, his name is Naifon Lat. Naifon Lat has been sentenced to 59 years in prison, 59 years in prison, only because he published some documents, some stories asking for more democracy in his country, Burma. In Vietnam, we are very concerned about the situation these days. There is a crackdown on bloggers in Vietnam. You can be sentenced once again to a few years in prison when you're a blogger in a country like Vietnam. We push as well to have a special day for freedom of expression online. You know, there are many international days to support many causes in the world, but there is nothing dedicated to freedom of expression online. There is a special day for press freedom on the 3rd of May, but nothing about freedom of expression online. So we would like to convince international organizations like UNESCO, United Nations to recognize this day. It's on the 12th March every year for at least 3 years now. We would like to make this day, the 12th March, a special day to promote freedom of expression online. I just want to give you a few examples of help we can provide to bloggers and internet users. In a country, in Egypt, for instance, we helped a blogger named Tamer Mabrouk to pay a fine because this blogger has been sentenced to a very heavy fine and he couldn't pay his fine, so he was obliged to stop blogging, he was obliged to find a new job, so we helped him to pay the fine he was sentenced for. And he had to pay this fine because he was sued by a very big company in Egypt, only because he denounces the fact that the activities of this company has very bad consequences for the water and for lakes in Egypt. I just want to say a word as well about Hu Jia. Hu Jia is a blogger in China. Hu Jia is not an anonymous blogger. Hu Jia received the Sakharov Prize. Sakharov Prize is the very big prize given by the European Parliament. And Hu Jia is still in prison in China. And we don't understand why European leaders don't push on this affair. I mean, the European Parliament cannot just give an award to someone and forget him in his jail. So I know that members of Parliament are still continue to ask for his release, but we really call European leaders and European Council to push on Hu Jia case because he should be released. Just to conclude, because I was a little bit longer than expected, there is a new hope with internet and new medias. But if we don't want to be disappointed, we have to commit strongly to freedom of expression. And moreover, we have to find a way to convince those who are still reluctant and those who still see internet as an enemy, internet as a threat. We have to convince these people, these political leaders, these economic leaders, these religious leaders that internet is not an enemy, is not a threat. Internet has to be considered as what it is. It means as a wonderful tool to promote peace and democracy. Thank you.